This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here is the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
And we are back from a hiatus of a few days here with A Different Perspective. I'm Kevin Randle, as you probably already know. Tonight I am joined by Don Schmitt, who I guess in the full disclosure here, in the interest of full disclosure, I should point out that I've known for nearly 30 years. We've worked in a number of investigations together, spent a lot of time in Roswell together. We've traveled the country together in UFO investigations, written a couple of books together, and we've had our differences of opinion on many, many things. But tonight we're going to take a look at some of the things going on Roswell. We're going to talk a little bit about the Roswell slides and see if we can iron some of that out and move on from there. Don, are you there?
I am here, and last time we spoke was when you were doing a show down in Midland, Texas. I'm kidding.
No, because it was actually in El Paso, Texas.
Oh, so, okay.
There you go.
So, big city.
Yes, we've moved up in the world. We're now in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, with the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and I couldn't be happier about that.
Well, from practically one border to across another, so good for you. Congratulations.
Yes. And as I mentioned, Don has done a number of books. I think the latest is called Children of Roswell. You've done Witness to Roswell, and I forget the name of the Area 50. Was it the Area 51, the Wright-Patterson connection, or?
The well, not the connection, but the true Area 51. Wright-Patterson, correct.
And those all came from New Page Books and are available on Amazon and your bookstores, correct?
That's correct. Thanks, Kevin.
So we've got the commercial plug-in for you now.
That's why I thanked you. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Don, how have things been going with your investigations of UFOs in just a couple of minutes here?
Oh, well, just as a quick example, and you certainly remember K Squad back at the Roswell Army Airfield in 47, Melvin E. Brown. And we ran into who was the son of a pig farmer. They operated a pig farm east of Roswell back in 1947. And they made a weekly trek to the Roswell Army Airfield where they picked up the cans of garbage from the mess halls. There were a number of mess halls on the base at that time, and they would bring back empty garbage containers and take out full refuge as far as the pigs, back at the farm. And his name is Raymond Pollard, 92 years old presently. Sat down with him, and he talked about how he didn't recognize some of the men working on the loading dock. And the reason that he specifically remembered the incident was because of the newspaper count at that time. And for the one and only time, he had trouble getting onto the base with the truck to pick up all the garbage from the mess halls. And it took quite a bit of discussion and some haggling before they finally realized, well, we still need to get rid of all the garbage, so they let him through. And he drove on, went to the loading dock area of one of the mess halls, and he overheard a sergeant talking about the crash north of town and making the remark about the strange people. And he didn't make anything more of it until sometime, probably the next week or so, when he returned, and he ran into that very sergeant again. And he asked him, and all he would tell him was that if you want any answers, you'll have to go to right field. That's where everything went. Now, again, it's just an interesting story. Nothing more, really, can't prove anything, as all these stories. But, again, it becomes, a piece of the puzzle.
Part of the mythology of the Roswell case.
Right. But is it possible that the very sergeant he was talking about was Melvin Brown? And it clearly suggested that personnel at K Squad knew of the incident, knew specific details of the incident. Now, we're going to
have to take a short break here.
Oh, okay.
We're running out of time. When we come back, we're going to follow up on this a little bit, and what we'll do is take a look at the Roswell slides fiasco, as I've come to call it. For those of you who are interested, you can read more about the Roswell case quite a bit at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and I have a new book out called Roswell in the 21st Century, which covers an awful lot of this stuff in detail. But we'll be back right after this with Don Schmitt, and we'll talk a little bit more about what this fellow saw while he was at Roswell in 1947. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now, in Roswell in the 21st Century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st Century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st Century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
And as promised, we are back with Don Schmitt talking about Roswell. Before we left, you were mentioning Melvin Brown. He was a sergeant who was assigned to the K Squadron at the base at the time, and he told his daughters and his wife about having seen the bodies as part of the recovery operation. What I wanted to say is I got an email from Beverly Bean 6 weeks ago or so, and somebody had been or is attacking her father's reputation and trying to find all these things on it. Some of the stuff had been up on my blog. I've since taken it down simply because, having talked to Beverly Bean, I didn't think it was really fair what the guy was saying. But so we've got some of that going on. And then that was one of the things, before we get into the other stuff I wanted to talk about just for a moment, is oftentimes these witnesses talk to us, tell us their stories, and once their names are released, we ended up with a lot of people wanting to verify that information and calling them sometimes in the middle of the night and sometimes accusing them of all sorts of nefarious activities. So I'm always now reluctant to mention witnesses' names simply because that can result in some of that happening to them. But I thought it was interesting Beverly Bean had written to me. I also got an email from Chester Lytle's granddaughter talking about some of the things that had been going on. And her grandfather had been a friend of Butch Blanchard at the Roswell base in 1947. And Butch Blanchard had told him about having seen the bodies. So there are, these connections going on all the time. So you were saying we have
in the witness book, Lytle knowing Blanchard. And I wasn't aware that Beverly Bean had contacted you, but I'm not surprised that, in fact, I pretty much know who the individual is because I've received similar emails from him for probably the last 7 years attacking Melvin Brown, and that he somehow claims to have, tracked up, did some tracing in his background, and his being transferred over to England, and then marrying over in England, and even got into his personal life and his wife and his girls and so on. So, but I think the best example would be when Bill Brazel, Mac Brazel's son, received a phone call from none other than Philip J. Klass on a Christmas Eve, calling him a liar and challenging him to produce any proof, any evidence he had at the time. And as often as Brazel basically told him to go to hell, Klass just persisted.
Well, but Brazel also talked about being called in the middle of the night by drunks at bars wanting to know if the story was true.
Yes.
And the thing with Bill Brazel, you called directory assistance in New Mexico, and you could have found him. You could have found his phone number. Bill has since passed away, so he's now insulated from that sort of thing.
But the rest of the family is not. In fact, they're still getting calls, amazingly enough.
So we've moved beyond the pig farmer who just...
Well, I just wanted to add that in having talked to his family, his children, that according to them, he started telling them this story back in the 1960s. And so if that is true, then long before Roswell incident or even Jess Marcel, the intelligence officer at Roswell, speaking out about the nature of the incident, and that they all, repeated the fact that their father told them about the comment from somebody out at the loading dock at the mess hall, talking about the crash and the strange people. That was the term he always used, strange people. But
they didn't write anything down. We have no letters. We have no diary or anything like that, which is the thing that stuns me is all these people involved in this thing, and nobody wrote anything down that we can trace back prior to 1978 with a couple of comments. Lydia Schleppe, who was the teletype operator in the radio station, she had made a comment to Stan Friedman back in the mid-1970s. It was actually published in a magazine. So prior to Marcel, we do have that one little bit of evidence.
UFO Report, correct?
Yes. Let's move on to the 800-pound gorilla in the studio, which is the Roswell slides, and I know you hate the term. And the skeptics...
Yeah, because I was the first one who, spoke out against that very connection. That, at least as far as I was never, convinced in any shape, manner, or form that they had anything to do with Roswell.
But Tom Carey was.
Yeah, I guess he was.
Tom is on radio programs talking about, especially having seen the slide, and we'll get to that in a moment, showing a sort of a marking on the head of the image in the photograph or the slide, looking like descriptions of the aliens that have been given specifically by Frankie Rowe with a back in that time. So Tom was clearly convinced this had to do with Roswell. But my question,
the term smoking gun, and that it was definitive proof. And I, for one, never was so bold as to make such pronouncements. I was very much on the fence throughout.
Well, let's get down to some of it right here. Adam Dew, who was the guy that I guess contacted you and Tom with the slides, is saying that he gave you and Tom scans, high-quality scans, of the slides from the very beginning, the very scans that were later used to reveal what the placard said. So Dew is saying that you had all the tools available to you to resolve this thing from the very beginning. So what's your response there?
But we only had one occasion. In my case, Tom had one, I had two, to actually handle and see one of the slides, the first slide. And then beyond that, we never had access to the originals. We were only able to work with that which we were provided. We were always under the impression we were shown genuine, full-scale, true to the original digital scans, including even enlarged elements from the slides, specifically the placard when we requested it. But we were always relying on them to provide us with the best possible resolutions. And then, as it turns out, obviously we weren't. That one can accuse or suggest that the second slide, for example, was light blasted, that it washed out the placard, that it was no longer legible in any manner, and that even the background of the second slide, which clearly shows that it's a tabletop museum display. And Tom was with me, for example. It was the very day after the Mexico City presentation, and we are in Jaime Maussan's office. And I'm asking, I want to see the second slide. I want to see the full image of the second slide. And he responded to me, why? And I went, why? I want to see the second slide. I don't need to ask you again. And he brought it up on screen, and I'm looking, and I'm going, oh, my God, because it was clearly a museum display. And it's like, why weren't we ever shown this before? Why was it always just a tight shot of the body in the second slide?
Well, Adam Dew claims that he showed you, or he gave you the full scan of the slide. This is what Adam Dew is saying today.
Well, he can claim all he wants, but again, we only were able to work with that which we received. And it was the first time that both Tom and I saw the second slide in its entirety. In fact, at the very close, towards the close of the presentation the night before, I kept leaning over to Tom, why aren't they showing the second slide? Why haven't they shown the second slide as of yet? And it wasn't until the very end. So that, too, was highly suspicious in my mind.
Do you think that Adam Dew knew what it was from the very beginning?
I don't think it's really come out that even Joseph Beeson, the original owner of the slides, through his sister, he's a graphic illustrator. And in that sense alone, that between the two of them and the type of technical equipment that they would have had access to, that I guess one could highly suggest that there was some manipulation, that there was some cropping, some image compression, possibly some photo blurring, in selective areas of the slides. Image resolution was changed, manipulation of the contrast and the color. They made the slides, the body look wet and, even less aged in some of the images we've seen. So there was clearly manipulation going on.
Do you believe the story about how the slide was discovered in the attic or the basement when Beeson's sister was cleaning out a house in Sedonia, Arizona? Do you believe that the slides were hidden from the rest of the slides, as they claim?
Well, mind you, again, we were accepting their testimony. We kept asking to speak from the get-go. We kept asking to speak with the sister. Obviously, we wanted to hear her full account. And at one point, it got a little testy to the point that I finally asked Beeson, would you be willing to take a polygraph, take a lie detector? And I know that's a typical ploy used by law enforcement, hardly with the intent of actually, conducting such a test, but it's most likely done to test the person's reaction, what the response is. If they hesitate, if they balk, well, then you possibly have them. And in Beeson's case, I will say he did agree. He immediately said, oh, yes, I'd be willing to take a lie detector test. So, again, that kind of took us back to square one. We were accepting their verbal testimony, their account of what took place. And yet, there are two different versions as to how the slides were discovered. And the first one being, according to Beeson, that his sister found them, this box of slides taped inside an envelope under the lid. And then in Mexico City, we hear the description that it was the cardboard box lid that was split open, and the slides were placed inside between the layers of cardboard, as though it was even more Machiavellian, as though it was even more sinister how they were hidden away from prying eyes.
Well, this was they were claiming was this was a box of 300 or 400 slides, and these were hidden inside that box in some fashion.
Right. They were 400 colored Kodachrome slides. And the other interesting thing is the slides that we were shown were all stamped Hilda Blair Ray, but not these two slides. So there too, it created it raised the question as to who actually took the pictures, who took the slides, images, and who did they, were they part of this collection or not?
That's an interesting observation, which we'll come back to in just a moment. We've got to take a quick break here. But for those of you who are interested, there's an awful lot of information about all of this that appeared on my blog in early 2015 under at kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and you can read about Don's investigations of the Roswell case and Witness to Roswell, and the latest book I think is Children of Roswell. So you can take a look at all of that, learn a little bit more about it. And for those of you who really want to get into it, my book is Roswell in the 21st Century, and it is available now on a limited basis, unfortunately, at Amazon.com. So we will be right back after this.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
We are back with Don Schmitt. We're talking about the Roswell slides, or as I often have called them, the not Roswell slides. And we were talking about the discovery of them and the multiple stories that have been told about that. The question that I have is the slides would have been numbered. And it would seem to me that if you had this big box of slides, you would know where they came from in that whole collection. There would be a gap in one of those series of slides. Did anybody ever think to look for that and to determine whether the slides were taken around that time?
Yes, in fact, that was another thing that we quickly encouraged as far as we wanted to see if there was a numerical consistency, if they indeed were part of that same collection or something else. And we were told they were, but then we were also told that the two body slides were out of count, that there was another slide, there was another image taken in between. So there was a missing slide. At least that's what we were told on one occasion.
Well, I think when you take a look at the slide evidence that Dew put up on his website, which is now long gone, there was a slide number 10. I think it's number 9 and number 11 which have the images on it, and number 10 was missing. And that was a question I had as well, is what did slide number 10 show?
Oh, precisely, exactly. In fact, again, we just accepted that they had whatever slides they had in their possession, and the fact that number 10 was missing, we just had to accept that it may have been the most spectacular of all, or it was something mundane.
Well, let's beat this dead horse completely here, because one of the questions that has raised was before the May 5th presentation in Mexico City, it came out that the coding on the edge of the slide was for 1947. Is that something that Dew told you and Tom?
As much as, and I was the first one, I had met with Joseph Beeson down in Evanston after Tom had first taken the phone call about the possibility of there being some photographic evidence. And you and I have both been there in the past where, even occasionally anonymously somebody would contact us and would claim to have some physical evidence. And you have to check it out. So I made the drive down to Evanston, just north of Chicago, met with Beeson. I was able to look at it, and the first thing I said was that we'll have to have this dated. We'll have to see exactly when this slide was manufactured and when it was exposed. And at that time, he had insisted that I sign a non-disclosure statement, which was fine. We had Tom do the same thing. But then the next thing came to the dating and whether we could get someone at Eastman Kodak to do just that. And the contacts were made to an historian in Rochester, New York, and Tom could tell you that both he, in driving range, living outside of Philadelphia, and Jaime Masson he was going to fly into New York, and they were going to witness the procedure. And we were always led to believe that it was the historian that continuously insisted that he only wanted one person present, that he didn't want to make this into any type of circus. He wasn't looking for publicity, he didn't want his name publicized, and that only one person would be allowed to observe his analysis of the slides. And obviously that turned out to be Adam Dew. And on one occasion it fell apart, partly due to third-party interference. Our friend and colleague, Anthony Bragalia, got word or was contacting the same historian at Kodak, and he felt that we had betrayed a confidence in releasing his name, hence the contact from Bragalia, and then that fell apart for about a half a year, and then it was then eventually put back as far as on schedule, and Dew then made the trip from Indiana to Rochester and then claimed that they had been dated. And again, I can't tell you, Kevin, what slide. I can't even tell you what slide was dated. Tom and I assumed it was the body slides.
But here's a question. Here's a question.
The circa 48, right.
When this all came up, I had posted on my blog something about it, and Adam Dew, under the guise of Slidebox Media, said that they had removed one of the slides from the mount. I think it's slide number 9. It's one with the body on it.
Yes, they had disassembled one of the slides, correct.
And the story was that the symbol for 1947, the Kodak symbol for 1947 was on the edge of the slide. The question is, did Dew tell you that, or was that an assumption made by somebody else when they said the chemical composition of the slide film and the chemical composition of the chemicals used to develop the film were consistent with the late 1940s?
That was an assumption, and in fact, it was strictly an assumption from those of us who were told that the historian had dated the slides to circa 1948.
Okay, so again, clearly the slides are dated from that period, and given the image that we now know what it was taken prior to May of 1947. We know this based on the movement of that display from the museum it was in to Montezuma's Castle, I think it is, which is another museum area, and the display, the remains have since been returned to the proper native peoples for their interment. So
Anasazi people, correct? Yeah.
So the next question is: there seem to be a number of red flags being raised here during this investigation, and I wonder why you didn't catch some of that stuff and take a step back from this when you couldn't get proper answers to the questions.
For this simple reason, Kevin, every time I would pose any question of doubt, I was then reminded, but so-and-so, says that the body isn't human, or that for all of the efforts, for example, in deciphering the placard, we again relied on the scans that were provided, whether it was to Dr. David Rudiak or Dr. Donald Burleson, or even Studio Macbeth, Ray Downing, who did the 3D imagery on the Shroud of Turin, that they were always provided with the highest resolution scans available. And we were always led to believe, for example, that the text on the placard was script, that it was handwritten. And so we accepted that. And then when Rudiak, for example, sends us back an email that this beats me, I can't get a single letter. Well, who am I going to believe? And then the next one, and the next one, and they're all saying undecipherable, we can't read it. And then Dew kept insisting that he had someone at Adobe who had also lamented that same problem, undecipherable. They're not able to read it. And then afterwards, when we would learn that, well, it was only a friend who worked at Adobe. So there again, yes, there were flags, but the flags all came after the fact, Kevin. Up until the event in Mexico City, all the anthropologists who were involved, not contacted, but involved, all the pathologists, the forensic pathologists who were talked to and shown, again, supposedly, the best images, the best resolutions of the slides. And then the breakdown as far as no one able to decipher the placard. Where am I supposed to go? Who am I supposed to then argue with when all of the experts, all the scientists are telling me there's something extraordinary here? But what I made the mistake that Don Schmitt made, was that I did question whether the material, the information that they were drawing their conclusions from, was the most reliable, most accurate, best images of the slides that they could have had at their disposal. That's the mistake I made.
Well, here's
I should
a question.
Have been questioning whether they were receiving the best.
Here's a question that came to my mind when I was looking at the Kodachrome trailer, which Adam Dew put up on YouTube, which was, 3 minutes of stuff about this. The thing that popped into my mind is it looked to me for a moment as if he was setting it up to prove how credulous UFO researchers are and how ill-informed the field is, that he was going to do a hit job on ufology, and this was his method of doing so. I posed that question on my blog 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Adam Dew has not bothered to communicate with me since that time. Did it ever cross your mind that this might be some kind of a setup to do a documentary to prove how credulous UFO researchers are?
Yes, it did. And in fact, and Tom could tell you, there were numerous occasions, even up till January of last year, just before the event in Mexico City. And I sat down and we Skyped between us, and I said, Tom, I don't know if I want to back out of this, because I was constantly, wrestling, not with that possibility of being set up, as much as I just was still doubtful. It was too easy, Kevin. It was too convenient. And as a result, I finally, it came down to, okay, Tom, you're the one with the anthropology background. You're just your dissertation away from your PhD. And you tell me, you give me your best, story line as far as, and we both either sink or swim with this. And I finally, okay, Tom, I go with you. I trust my partner. I go with you.
Well, I know that I sent Tom an email in December of 2014 because I was trying to figure out where pictures like this would be taken. And I searched through the science fiction literature, including movie footage, and could find nothing like it. And I asked Tom point blank, could it be a mummy? And he said no, it could not be a mummy. And he said you'd looked at 500 images or something like that. And I thought, are you looking for the specific one, or are you looking for the general characteristics of mummies and couldn't come up with anything that fit?
It still came down to, if, say, for example, let's take the placard off the slides. No placard. And let's take, the museum setting in the background out of the slides. We just have two images of two bodies. It would be, a split camp between those who still believe that it might depict something non-human, as opposed to those who they won't accept it no matter what. And I think that's the position that the owners of the slides may have taken. We have to light blast the placard. We have to somehow change it. We have to make it look so it's undecipherable. And then we have to shoot it tight so we don't see the background, that it is indeed a museum setting.
Well, we'll have to take a quick break. And those are the
things we did not see.
We'll take a quick break here. I'm talking with Don Schmitt, author of Witness to Roswell with Tom Carey and Children of Roswell with Tom Carey. My blog is www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, which has a lot of information, that the minutia of this story going back into 2015. And my book is Roswell in the 21st Century, and there is a segment on the slides in that book, although it is a reduced analysis of it based on things that we learned afterwards. So we will be right back with Don Schmitt and more of the Roswell case.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
And we are back with Don Schmitt, who is one of the authors of Witness to Roswell and Children of Roswell. We've been talking about the not Roswell slides. I think maybe a little bit too much about them. But we'll move forward in the Roswell case after I ask one single additional question, and that is, given everything we know now, you are convinced that what we have in the pictures, the slides, are the remains of an unfortunate child who died centuries ago. Is that correct?
Yes. And as you yourself remember that I quickly apologized after the event in May of last year, and that realizing that we had been duped, that we were provided different versions of slides and specific elements of those slides, again assuming that it was the most accurate, most original that could be provided, and the placard clearly demonstrated that we were snookered, and unfortunately, because we did not have access to the original slides for that type of testing. Again, we placed our faith in human nature, and that was a professional sportscaster, for example. Why would he risk his very reputation by getting involved in such a hoax, such a prank?
And but there is no question in your mind at this point that there is not an alien creature in those slides. And I ask that because there's been some discussion here and there that you and Tom are waffling on that description.
And that's what I don't understand, because, I put out the apology, and I voiced, as far as my very specific pronouncement at that time, that I accepted that indeed was the mummified remains of a human being, and that I'm still accused of waffling when the one thing that I speak out on and that I emphasize is that immediately after Mexico City, and Jaime Maussan and Adam Dew and Tom Carey were part of the phone conversation, I demanded that the slides would be publicly released. I wanted to then see a analysis of the very placard. I wanted to see it in current time. I wanted to see it right there from the slides. I wanted them to demonstrate that nothing had been altered.
The one thing about these slides, this whole thing that really strikes me is this is one of the few cases where we have absolutely all the evidence to take us to the end. Once the placard was identified, once the museum was identified, documentation was found from 1897, 1898, showing how the mummy was recovered, showing its trip to the museums where it was held, and what happened to it. I mean, it was so well documented, it's obvious that this question had been solved.
And the fact that, that we had a name for the first time, S.L. Palmer, that, he was the one who discovered the remains. And so for anybody who still believes that I've been hedging or that I have been expressing any doubt whatsoever, again, I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not suggesting that a hoax was perpetrated, as much as if that was indeed the case, I fell for it. I made the mistake. And I was relying on the information that was provided us and the experts. And if there was one thing I also truly learned, is that even the scientific community, even the best people within their respective professions can make mistakes, can, as a result of receiving falsified information, then as a result make less than accurate pronouncements on said, evidence, said information. But then that has often been the case throughout history.
Does this case
we work with what we have? Does it hurt?
Does the slide fiasco harm the Roswell case?
Well, personally, I would like to believe it harms me in the sense that I'm connected to the Roswell investigation, and vis-a-vis, it could then in turn harm the investigation. But that was also one of the reasons that I so quickly denounced any connection to Roswell, because I wasn't finding any. There wasn't anybody who was providing, the connection, except the possible time connection. And as a result, it was just rank speculation. It was just wishful thinking. I was publicly, I was quoted within UFO Chronicles, stating that it was not physical evidence, and that's important to understand when a picture has evidence or has value, and that's when you know exactly who took it, under what circumstances, how were they provided the opportunity, how were the slides dated, that type of thing. So I was always questioning whether we were. I kept using the word. But you have to remember,
Tom Carey was talking about this being the smoking gun. This proved that Roswell was alien. Tom is clearly on the record prior to May 5th making those claims.
And Tom could also tell you when he spoke at American University, I was quite upset. I was actually quite livid when I learned that he had announced what we had and that he referred to them as a smoking gun. And so there were many challenges. There were arguments. There were disputes within the camp as to what we should do, where we should go, and whether we were dealing with the genuine article or not. No one's going to find anywhere where I've ever referred to them as connected to Roswell, as a smoking gun, or as legit. I constantly qualified every statement I made with the word if. If they're validated, if they're genuine, if they check out, if all the scientific community, stands in support of the images. Then and only then would they be accepted as possibly genuine, because it's still a photographic image. It's not the actual article.
And we didn't really have a good connection to it until after the reveal in Mexico City and after the documentation was found that we could connect all of this to a specific event, and it had nothing to do with UFOs. But,
and isn't it interesting that the actual image, specifically of the second slide, with the full placard visible for deblurring and analysis, it doesn't come out till the Mexico City event. It doesn't come out till days thereafter.
But you have to also remember that the skeptical community didn't have access to that slide until Adam Dew put it up on his website in the days that followed the May 5th presentation. And it was within 48 hours that they were able to deblur it.
That's right. And the point is, to you and your listeners, neither did we. Just as the skeptic community did not have access, neither did we. And the mistake was that we still took the ball and ran with it. And in my case, that was strictly because I was relying on the experts, the scientists, those who were unable to deblur the placard, and those who were stating it was not human, that it was non-human, that I accepted their expertise. And I should have
You still accept the Roswell case as being alien. There was an alien craft crashed at Roswell.
I don't even use that word, Kevin. I think you know that. I'm very reluctant. I use the testimony of the witnesses where they refer to the little people, the little men, that type of thing. And to their credit, that they don't use words such as spacemen and extraterrestrial and even men from another planet, that type of thing. I'd like to believe that the investigation is still fluid. It's still ongoing in the sense that I'm not done. We're not done. We're still looking. It's still very fluid in that regard.
So what I hear you saying is that you're not sure that it was an extraterrestrial event at Roswell.
If definitive proof to the contrary, if anything were still forthcoming, which would demonstrate that this was something conventional, something prosaic, something we had never considered before. Let's just say that each new pronouncement that the government has provided us has gone wanting. It's not provided the final answer. We know, both of us know, it was not a mogul balloon.
And we know it wasn't a rocket ship, or when I say rocket ship, I mean a rocket or missile from White Sands. We know it wasn't an experimental craft. We know it wasn't an aircraft from the base. So there's
Russia, from Germany, right.
So we're still wondering what it was, but what I'm saying is, so you're not convinced it was extraterrestrial. You think there may be some other answer?
No, I am not 100%. I could say I'm 95% convinced, yes, based on all the eyewitness testimony, which certainly supports the first announcement, the first press release that went out, on Tuesday, July 8th, that they had captured a flying disc. And so far, I'm not finding any witnesses that would support any alternative explanation. But for those who come up with preconceived theories, such as Annie Jacobsen, that it was a Russian device, from captured German, as far as flying wing, the Horton brother technology, and Dr. Joseph Mengele creating, 13-year-olds to appear as though they were alien, landing in the middle of New Mexico back in 1947. That's the problem, and people who attempt to seek out proof for a preconceived theory.
We've got to go here, John. I thank you for taking time to chat with us this afternoon, or this evening, about this. Your book is Witness to Roswell and the Children of Roswell, and I thank you for taking time with this. If you want more information about the Roswell case, take a look at my blog, www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. You'll find an awful lot of information about Roswell, and take a look for my book, Roswell in the 21st Century, and that will add greatly to your knowledge of the Roswell case. Once again, thank you very much, Don.